Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. No matter what time of the day or the evening it is, as you're giving us the pleasure and the honor of joining us today, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And today, just like always, we've worked up a great episode. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the overwhelming part of the year, and we're not going to talk war stories. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about processes and solutions so you don't repeat these actions again in another year. So, Randy, what would you say about today's episode? What would you say that people that's going to give value to people that are going to be here with us?
Well, we're discussing chaos, and chaos, you're always going to have some sort of chaos in your life. But I think, especially in our industry, October, November, December, there's more chaos than normal. And so there's good ways to handle that, and there's bad ways to handle that. And so hopefully our listeners can pick up some good ways to handle that.
There you go. So, Sheryl, what about you? You work with a lot of our clients and they're hiring. What would you say about the information we're going to share in today's episode?
Well, hopefully we can clear out a lot of it in the hiring process and things that we need to do because it is chaotic now. I don't know anywhere. Our businesses are chaotic, but outside of that, the whole world seems to be chaotic right now.
It is. It's a hard place to be. So stick around with us. We'll be right back. We're going to get started. We're going to play our little intro music, and we'll be right back with you. Have y'all noticed that in that intro that Jonathan picked each of us up laughing and everything going on? When I look at that, you can see Brandi like she's just laughing out her rear end and all that, and we were smiling and happy. Did y'all notice that in that thing?
I noticed there was more Jerry than Brandi and Sheryl.
Well, that
Did
was
you
it.
notice that too?
Well, that was Jonathan. I didn't do it. That was Jonathan Sanders. So anyway, today I'm coming to you, guests, from where I'm in the heartland of America. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. Just finished the morning presentation here with a home inspector group. It's a franchise group. Got 220 franchise holders, and I've talked to them this morning about chimneys and chimneys inspections and that kind of stuff. This was my third presentation in the last 6 weeks with home inspector groups. And Randy, I've had about 500 people at this point in the classes. You think we're sharing a lot of good information out here?
That is awesome because the home inspectors definitely need that knowledge.
They definitely need them. So today we're going to be talking about chaos. We're going to be talking about all kinds of different things. And we're hoping to come up with some options for you. And what I'm going to share with you, I got a couple slides that I want to share in today's episode to kind of reinforce what we're talking about here. So let me get that up. So again, what we're talking about is the fall season. And in the fall season, in the industries we serve, which are chimney, venting, fireplace, home inspectors, whatever, there's piles of chaos. So Sheryl, what would be one of your little stories about chaos that may really be attacking people in today's world right now?
Well, as most know, I do a lot of hiring for people. There's two sides to it. Right now, there's a lot of people needing people to work. On the other hand, there's a lot of people out there that need a job, but that don't want to go to work. So it's definitely a balance. People seem to almost be in that point of doing the mirror test of if you're breathing, come on. And I try to keep them away from that as much because that doesn't do anything except cause chaos after chaos.
Yep. And Brandi, you're sitting there today at Flues Brothers processing, from what you've told me, sometimes hundreds of phone calls a day. In fact, we're hearing clients that are having 180, 250, 300 phone calls a day coming in the office. And I'm sure it's like you got one phone in one hand, one in another. So what's chaos like at Flues Brothers right now?
Yeah, this week there around Kansas City, there's a GI bug going around and a really bad cold. And so we've had a tech and an office person out with that this week. Definitely the hundreds of phone calls, plus all the emails and web submissions. Customers get angry at you this time of year because everybody's already booked out past Christmas and they wanted it before Thanksgiving. So that's kind of the general chaos around here right now.
Yep. And with the clients I deal with, it's amazing because some of them are simply overwhelmed. I've got people, Brandi, that are actually saying, I'm just going to turn my phone off. I can't take any more. We're backed up so bad. The backlogs are terrible. Right now, you're dealing with a lot of chaos. Your chaos is probably partially from supply. It's hard to get your stuff. It's hard to get the items that you sell. We're in tremendous shortages. There's also the factor of inflation and rising costs. When we look at it, gas is going up. It seems like every day we turn around, our operating costs is going up, affects our numbers. And then on top of that, we have the supply chain of prospective employees. So overall, being a manager in today's world is chaos. So we could spend this show talking about war stories. We could just sit here and we could talk about all the bad things that happen, but that's not our plan. Our plan today is to share with you processes, procedures that you can put to work to eradicate chaos from your life. Right now, I picked this picture up because, Brandi, does that kind of resemble working in a chimney sweep office today or running a chimney service business where it feels like you got a tiger by the tail and it's just taking off and you're hanging on for dear life? Does it ever feel that way?
It does at times. And I feel like you're Representative Chucky there. I feel like it's Groundhog Day because we just keep repeating over and over.
Yeah, it does. Sure. What about you? Does it ever feel like you just got a tiger by the tail?
Yeah, ours, like in the industry that I work in, is basically the same thing. You have that season when it's so crazy, but our tiger by the tail now is pulling a different direction because the people can't get their grills. So, needing the grill islands is getting harder and harder for people to do right at this moment.
Right. And let's add a more chaos to the year 2021, which is the factor of the never ending COVID situation, where we have clients where they are not able to have all their workforce there. Just this past week, one of my clients had their entire company shut down because COVID is roaming through there. And it seems like it's also a problem because their children get COVID. So now they've got to stay out. And this testing and COVID thing just kind of hangs with us and doesn't seem to be letting up. And we're going through all the things that are involved there. And we're seeing the people frustrated over masks, frustrated over vaccines, whatever. But again, it's just like you got a tiger by the tail. So let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about processes, because I want to share some ideas with you today that possibly will help you to tame this stinking tiger that you're hanging on to there. And the first one is, and I want to look at this, because if you ever look at business, and when people talk about business, they divide the year into 4 cycles, 4 quarters. The first quarter goes January through March. Then their second quarter is April through June. The third quarter, July through September. And then they have the fourth quarter, which is the months of October through December, which is the 4 quarters of business. Now, Brandi, is this usually the way? Where do you think the 4 quarters came from, Brandi?
So these traditional 4 quarters came from like your 4 quarters that you do for your payroll, for your business taxes, etc.
Okay. Sheryl, what's your thoughts on the 4 quarters? Do you think it's from payroll taxes? Why do you think that we divide the calendar year into 4 cycles like this?
I think a lot of it has to do with the seasons, because in the fourth quarter, we're in the fall and the winter. We're in the winter months. Third, the fall. Second, summer, spring. So that's the way I, along with Brandi, automatically you think taxes, but the seasons are in 4 quarters.
Yep. So that's what's there. So this is the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is, if you're in the chimney and the venting and the fireplace season, stop looking at quarters. We're going to divide the year up a little differently for you, and we want you to take a look at a little different process, and we're going to talk about how to implement and what you do in this new process. And here it is. we want you to think of 3 seasons, because in the business you're in, there are probably 3 seasons. And the first season is the January 1st to spring season. Then we take in spring to Labor Day. And then we have Labor Day to January 1. And this is 3 significant thirds of the year. And I went even a little further here. If you look right, the first third, what is it? It is the time for action. So what I'm pointing at here, that come January 1st, and I've always heard this throughout my life, after the first of the year, after the first of the year. But January 1, I want you to think that that is the springboard for your action. In the second third, which is going to run from spring to Labor Day, this is where you got to set your goals to accomplish things, because you've got to have a drop dead date, which is Labor Day, and possibly even earlier. Maybe it's in the 1st of August, but you've got to have, this is a time that we have it completed. Let me give you examples. One would be a software implementation. If someone were going to implement new software in this quarter that we're in right now, basically they would be crazy. It's going to drive you crazy. You don't have the time to do it. So then we get to the third quarter, and this is where, excuse me, not quarter, but the third. Now in the third, what are we going to do? In these months, we are going to collect data. We're going to track, we're going to measure, we're going to be seeing what is our waste, what is our frustration, and we're going to collect the data at this point. So Sheryl, I'm going to go to you first. When you look at this year divided into thirds, and what I'm suggesting in the 3 courses of action, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's definitely the way it needs to follow, because during the working quarter, it's really hard to do any kind of integration or implementation, whatever you want to call it. And we don't have time to transform our company. We have to work with what we've got and move on. You have to choose your quarters or your thirds.
Your thirds. So Brandi, what's your thought? I mean, let's say that one of your clients called up and say, I'm fed up with this software, and we just bought a new software, and we're going to start implementing this on Monday. What would be your thought process?
Well, believe it or not, it happened today, only it was payroll. I had one of my clients call up and say that he wanted to change the way he's doing his payroll system. And I said, not now. Let's wait till spring. Yeah, now is the time where you just keep a notebook. I'm big on notebooks. And as things are going wrong, or as you're getting ideas, write those down. Like you said, collect data, so that as soon as spring does hit, and then we kind of hit a wall and go a lot slower, then you can pull out this list and start implementing things on the list.
Correct. And this is where it comes in from tracking our waste. See, often as we get busy, and this is what I see, Brandi, I see people, they drop their training in that third. They don't do their training. They drop their quality control. In fact, one of our joint clients just said the other day, hey, we're not going to do any call audits for the month of October. Hooray, hooray. But at the same time, what does it mean? We're dropping our quality control measures, which is part of our tracking. So do you agree that we drop things in the third that we should be keeping on with to give us our tracking and measurement, Brandi?
Well, it depends on what it is. So this is probably where you and I differ. That client, I was proud of them for dropping that, because the call audits can take a long time, and they are religious about doing them every other time of the year. So I didn't want them wasting a lot of time listening to calls when there's so many calls coming in. So I gave my blessing on that and was proud of them. But There's a lot of other things that you can't drop.
Right. But at the same time, see, that's what's so great about us working as a team with people, because as you see, we don't agree all the time. So what that means is you could actually be having a conversation with myself, Brandi, and Sheryl, that we may have a different point of view. And that way we come up with the best solutions that work, because it is each of our individual points of view. And we're open to hearing where each of us can give better opinions. But see, this is also something which is in this time of year, and before we get to the first of the year, we've got to establish what we call our priority list. And you can see I have this divided into 4 segments. And in segment number 1 at the top left-hand corner, you see it says important, but not urgent. Over to the right of that, you'll see the words urgent and important. In the lower left-hand corner, we have neither important nor urgent. And then we have urgent, but not really an important thing to do. So what you've got to do is you've got to assemble your priority list in a way that it works for you to accomplish your goal. So Sheryl, your turn first. Look at this. What's your thoughts on the priority list?
I mean, that's something you need to do even when it's not chaotic in my book, but especially when it is, because there's some things that are extremely important. If you don't accomplish them, they show up in your bottom line or in your labor force or in whatever you're doing. There are other things that are not that important, but you still need to keep them, as Brandi would in her notebook. So when you've got a moment to do it, so each quadrant has a special place. And you have to, my suggestion would be somebody make a board like this, but inside of it, type in, write in, do something, what fits in that list, just as you would an accountability chart for your company.
Right. And I like wall charts. So what you're looking at here, you could make this into a really big chart on the wall, and then you could put sticky notes on each one of where it falls into, color coding, other things. But what you've got to do is you got to work on this priority system. So Brandi, what's your input on the priority list and making it and dividing it into what's urgent and what's not so urgent?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as Sheryl. I would recommend, especially as you're getting started in prioritizing, having this list out and putting all of the tasks in the 4 different quadrants. For example, we're on Service Titan, and so we have to classify our calls each day. Now, that's very important because I need that data, but there's no emergency. It's not urgent.
That's it.
So I think this is a great way of looking at those things, because I think too often you have 2 types of people. They either put like everything down on the list that they don't even need half of that, or they put just a few things down on the list and there's no in between.
That's it. Now, here's another thing, and this is what I get from a lot of people. A lot of managers simply are personally overwhelmed. They are up against the wall, and we talk about the things that we got to do in the business. It could be quality control. It could be job costing. It could be any number of those type of things. So I want you to pay really close attention, because I'm going to go to another slide in a minute, and we're going to talk about that. And that is this slide right here. And this is called the Eisenhower matrix. And that's not for me. This is named after General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who also was a president of the United States. And as you look at this, keep in mind, what did Dwight Eisenhower do? He was the supreme commander in World War II. In other words, he commanded the combined forces of all the Allied forces. And this was a matrix he came up with. And if you look here, this is what I think can be something unreal for you, which is, what are the things that you have to do now? What are the things that you need to decide and schedule a time to do it? And number 3 in red is big. Who can you delegate it to? Number 4 is delete and eliminate it. It's not really that important. And this is also something I see that a lot of people have. They have a real issue because certain things overwhelm them. Certain things catch their attention. Certain things really bother them. So Brandi, what do you think about the Eisenhower decision matrix?
Yeah, I love it. Especially kind of going back to what you said. I think the delegation is really important. I think just as people, we're not very good at delegating. We feel like we can do it better and faster than anyone else. And so I see so many times where there's things that can be delegated and they're not. I think it also falls along with outsourcing. And this can even get into your personal stuff at home. Like this time of year, I don't have time to clean my house and we don't have time to pick up the leaves in our yard. We outsource all that because we know what our time is worth. And that time can be spent much better working rather than spending all day in the yard picking up the leaves. We can pay someone to do that who can do it much faster and much more efficient. So outsourcing, delegation, whatever you want to call it, you have to figure out how to get those non-essential things off your plate.
Correct. And you know, I love to get out and get on my big lawnmower and mow the grass. I mean, it gives me a chance to get away and think, but at the same time, I can't do my job. I cannot answer my clients' calls. Someone texts me, they want to hear that, hey, I don't have time to talk to you right now. It's just like today, I was doing a seminar. So as soon as I got the seminar done, I had texts that were piling up, but I did warn people because there was an auto reply on the text that said I was doing a seminar. I would reply as soon as I was over with. So, Sheryl, what about your thoughts? What would you say about the Eisenhower matrix of delegation and problem solving we just saw?
I like Brandi outsource a lot because it's just with you traveling, especially, we can't do it here all the time. But the one after delegate, I like the delete button because I think we hold on to stuff that has no meaning. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help the company. But it's the things we wake up at night and we've got to get this done. And the answer is why? Just dump it and go on.
Right. Well, Sheryl, one of the things that I think helps both you and myself and not being overwhelmed is the assistants we have. I mean, you have a personal assistant. She works full time for us and she is running your errands. She's taking care of a lot of the things that frees you up so you can do what you do best and not have to chase down silly stuff, runs the errands, believe it or not, goes and gets the dry cleaning, goes and picks up the groceries, all those things. Is that part of there of having people you can delegate the simple tasks to?
It definitely is. And it was such a minor thing that taught me into hiring her. And people need to look at it this way. The thing that broke the ice, for lack of a better word, and made us decide to do it, I needed a doorknob with a lock on it. For 2 weeks, I could not get out away from in front of this computer to go get a doorknob. And so actually it was like I needed somebody to get me a doorknob. But she's done so much more. And as time goes on, she picks up more and more. And the only bad part about that, the more she picks up there, the more I pick up here. But you can't do it all yourself. I don't care. I mean, I'm old enough. I need help. I don't care how old you are. You can't do it all nowadays.
Well, and that's one of the things, which is because that's just one of the people we use, because what we have is we actually have a list of virtual assistants. And these are people that we don't even see maybe in 5 years or ever. And they do virtual assignments for us, such as Julie that works our education platform. She issues all them credits. I don't make out those completion sheets. I don't have time to do that kind of stuff. And I would disappoint my clients. And if we take it, we got an audio producer. That's Steven. Steven does the editing for our podcast, does a great job. We just turn it over to him. He gets it back to us. Jonathan does our video stuff, and different people that have doing work. It's just like Lori. Lori does my graphics. So when you see a graphic come up on my social media, that's what Lori has done and forwarded to it. And it takes care of so many things. And I think that's where a lot of people are hurting, is they cannot delegate. They're scared to turn it over to someone else because they don't feel confident they can get it done right. I know I was recently meeting with a client in their office, and it was like, and Brandi, if you remember, we've had 2 calls about this and joint calls now, where the owner is scared to delegate because he's afraid somebody won't do it right. So what's your thought processes of how to get on top of this overwhelming fall season, Brandi?
Well, going back to that client, they are going to fail. When you delegate it, they might fail the first time, the second time, but they will learn. And that's just part of the process. It's funny because if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, actually even 5 years ago, it would be a different conversation. But my CSRs just had Dunkin' Donuts delivered while we've been on this call, but with DoorDash. This shirt I'm wearing came from Amazon because I hate shopping and I would much rather be binging Escape to the Chateau on TV than going to shop for clothes. There's just so much at our fingertips these days that takes away so much of the stuff that just takes up a lot of time. I have a lot of things that we can go through, but I don't know how much time we have. A lot of tips and tricks for chaos.
I am not going to tell you what we're going to do and limit you on what you can say. Okay. So what we're going to do is, folks, so you'll know, I'm getting ready to light a match to a firecracker right now because whenever I turn her loose, Sheryl and I are going to just now sit back and watch because Brandi's going to now rock and roll with the great ideas from Brandi for the fall of 2021. Young lady, you have the floor.
Well, you know what it is? You love mind mapping and like brainstorming. And that's what I do. When you tell me the topic, I just sit here and think, and I want to write down like 100 ideas. And then I don't know how to compartmentalize them. I guess the first thing I would say is no is a complete sentence. And I love to say that one over and over again. No is a complete sentence. Learn what you can say no to. If it's busy season and you're that business owner and you've worked 60 hours this week and now someone's vying for your time on the weekend, you can say no. You don't have to say yes. You have to take care of you. Again, some chaos is good. Without chaos, we would be bored and not in a good place. The chaos helps keep our adrenaline going. It helps keep things exciting, but we want it to be a small amount of controlled chaos. I think one of the first things you can do is just plan out your day. And it sounds so simple, but a lot of people don't do it. And they just let whatever happens throughout the day come to them, hit them, and they don't have any boundaries. One of the things, Jerry, that we've talked about before on here is the Pomodoro technique. And we've talked about that plenty, but I found a new technique. It's called and I'm not going to pronounce this right, the Ultradian Sprint. That's ULTRADIAN. And it came from the book, Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. And basically all it is a technique where you do one single task without any other interruptions until that task is done, maybe 90 minutes, maybe 120 minutes, whatever that looks like. And then you follow it up by a true break and then go to another task. I mean, Jared, can you imagine, you were talking about all those texts you were getting. Can you imagine if you just had 90 minutes to sit down and do nothing but that, and no more messages are coming in, you're not checking email, you're not answering calls, you're just getting back to those people. I mean, that can make a huge difference. Automate what you can. So again, we have technology at our fingertips. There's so much that we can automate these days that we don't have to do. I mean, you don't have to go to the bank anymore. You can remote deposit everything. You can have a CRM that takes care of all your clients. We are in a beta testing with our CRM where they have a customer portal, because we're always taking these calls where, can you send me this again or that again? No, just go to your customer portal and get it yourself. We've already talked about outsourcing. Focus on the end goal. So I think what happens this time of year, especially in our industry, is we get so overwhelmed and so tired, and that's all we can think about. And we're not thinking about what is the end goal, because first of all, we're blessed to be busy, and this time is going to come to an end. And what do you want to get out of this time? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to grow your company? And go ahead and plan a vacation. Like, this is the time of year, if you want to sit home at the weekend and plan a vacation, research shows if you have something to look forward to, it goes a long way in your health. Stick to your systems. So, Jerry, we talk about this all the time, systems and processes. This is not the time of year to get off of those, but for whatever reason, when the chaos is happening, we tend to forget that we have systems. The big one for me, take care of your health, go to the gym. There is countless research that shows that if you work out and build up a sweat, that is going to take away a lot of your stress. And taking care of our health so that we can be there for our business and not sick in bed. Have fun when you can. And, maybe this looks like sneaking out at lunch to go have a little lunch date with your spouse. Whatever that looks like for you, sneak in a little fun wherever you can. Let's see. Don't be afraid to hit pause and plan something to look forward to. So that's like the vacation. Take a proactive approach. So in other words, be proactive. Think about what chaos could be coming and get on top of that rather than letting it manage you. I always like to play what's the worst thing that could happen. I hate negative Nellies. I know that's a strong word, hate, but I don't like negative Nellies. I can always think of one of our technicians cuts his hand. Well, great. He didn't fall off a roof. He didn't die in a car accident. I can always play that there are so many worse things that could have happened. Now, what happens if I don't do my payroll? Well, that's pretty bad because the result's going to be I'm probably going to lose some employees. But what happens if I don't return an email from somebody that's just reaching out for free help that I haven't heard of? Well, they'll probably follow up with me, but it's not the end of the world. Work smarter, not harder. So I have a question for you. And Jerry, since we've done a lot of talking, I'll send this one to Sheryl. Sheryl, do you know how the ancient Egyptians moved those massive stones to build those pyramids? I really want to go to Egypt someday and see them.
How they moved them, they rolled them, I think.
They found out that if you wet it down with water, you wet the sand down, then you can actually, it reduces the friction so that you can get them carried across and rolled across the desert better. So there's an example of many long ago where they were thinking of working smarter, not harder. Think outside the box. That kind of plays into that. Don't let your negative mood affect others. And Jerry and Sheryl, I see this one a lot with business owners, and it's really bad. And Jeremy and I were actually talking about this last night. If you've had a bad day and then you're just kind of walking around and putting that attitude on the rest of the team, then everybody else is picking up on that negativity, and then everybody's having a bad day. So if you've had a bad day, go away, go get a massage, do whatever you need to do to get that positive energy back, but don't spread it to your workforce. Find someone to vent to, and this is important. And it's funny, working with our one-on-one clients, sometimes I will have an office person call up with an issue, and I have to ask them, now, do you want me to help you solve this, or are you just wanting to vent? And probably 8 times out of 10, they say, I just want to vent. I just need somebody to vent to. But it is important to have that person. Meditate and journal. I'll never downplay that. There's just so much research, again, out there of how that can help. And nowadays, same thing. You can be sitting in your office and just take 5 minutes and pull up a quick YouTube meditation and do it. And it can be day changing for you. We've already talked about utilizing technology. I mean, you can have your groceries delivered these days. Everything can come to you. You don't have to go anywhere. You can have Uber take you to work if you want. And then don't take it personal. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, where we were talking about, customers are getting mad because we can't get to them before Thanksgiving. And sometimes I, in the past, will take that really personal, and I'll get upset because they're upset, but they're not upset at me. They're not upset at the company. At the end of the day, they're upset at themselves because they didn't plan. So try not to take those things personal and just let them roll off your back. I think that's really it, Sherry.
Okie dokie. Well, like I said, I lit a match a while ago, and when I fire her up, she's going to let it out because she has done some prep time, and she's always got valuable things to say, okay? That's the whole thing. You take what you can use. So, Sheryl, what about you? Any gold nuggets, anything you would add to this?
Ditto. Basically, she hit upon a good percentage of the things. The number one thing is put your mask on first before you start helping others. I mean, I don't think that ever goes away from me, because that's the one thing that if you don't, and that covers a lot of what Brandi said, your health, your time, your whatever. But if you're not breathing and taking it where it needs to be, you can't help the next person. I mean, you and I took care of elder parents, and we had to take care of ourselves to be able to take care of them. It's the same in a business. It's the same in a family, whatever goes. It's just take care of yourself.
One thing, I was talking to a client, and I'm not shared this with either one of y'all, but he told me right before this call, I had a call with him, and he's shutting down next Wednesday. He's giving everybody in the company a day off. Now, part of this is there's a lot of hunters there. So it's actually the opening day of hunting season in his area. So, but it's like some of the people aren't hunters, but he said, hey, we're just going to shut down for a day. And I told him, I said, brother, that's such a significant culture building thing, because he's one of these guys that just moves methodically, handles the challenges, doesn't get overwhelmed. He's a very soft-spoken guy. He makes the hard decisions that need to be made. But again, what's it like to shut your business down in October? Because I know another company, that's one of the things they do. They're big deer hunters there. And so they shut down for like 2 days or 3 days when deer hunting season starts. And you look at this, because it is like we're running and we're running and we're running and we're running. And when does it stop? One of the things I'm noticing is I'm seeing people in this industry starting to take vacations in October, November. Now, that was unheard of a few years ago. But actually, I've got clients. I've got one, he's going on a cruise next week in October. And pretty unreal. It's a change of what we're seeing. Because one thing about the chimney and the venting and the fireplace industry, Brandy, is this pretty well turned into a year-round, always busy?
Absolutely. I call this busy season, and then we just have normal busy.
Yeah, but it does. But I can remember times when, hey, it wasn't this busy. You weren't that accepted. And, some interesting statistics I got together. Randy, do you know how many homes are in America, single family homes?
Oh gosh. It's got to be in the billions, right?
83 point something million.
Wow.
Do you know how many chimney sweeps are in America estimated as of today?
Maybe 1,000 or more?
About 11,423. Now, of that 80 some million homes, it's estimated that about 60% of them have chimneys or fireplaces or some type of vented appliance in there. So, what this means is, and this is great if you're in this industry, you are getting accepted more and more as a needed part of the American economy. Brandi, do you see that happening there in Kansas City?
Absolutely. And people don't quite look at us as strange. Like they used to be, you tell them, what do you do? Oh, I'm a chimney sweep, or I own a chimney and fireplace company. And they would just look at you and maybe want to hand you some money because they thought you must be really poor.
Yeah. Sheryl, since the time you've been with me in this industry, which goes a little over 20 years at this point, are you seeing that it is a much healthier, more lucrative financial endeavor for the people in this industry?
Definitely is. It used to just be a job, more one-man bands too, but now there's large companies that are moving, that are in the field. It has grown exponentially, especially I'd say in the last 10 years, more so than the last 20.
Yeah. So these are the words we want you to remember. It is a hectic time of the year. It really, truly is. But this is where you have to be a leader. And leaders have to come up with solutions. And that's what we work with a lot of people, is coming up with these solutions. And I'm going to tell you this, deep down inside, every one of you knows what these solutions are. You really true. You truly do. Maybe it's just coming up with that internal strength, coming up with that internal energy to deal with these kind of things. Because every time somebody tells me, hey, you're thinking about cutting the phone off, and this is what I tell them, Brandi, Sheryl, I said, wait a minute. This was what you wanted. You came to me some years ago and your business wasn't producing. You weren't in the demand you wanted to be. We've come up with all these systems. Now you got what you wanted. Now you can't handle it. What's next? But the end result is deciding what you want. And Brandi, I think that's where I admire you and Jeremy so much. Y'all decided how big you wanted Blues Brothers to be. You decided where you wanted to be, and you had your reasons of, we don't want to go there. I mean, Blues Brother, Jeremy Biswell and Brandi Biswell, do you want 50 trucks running for you, working for you?
Oh, heck no.
No way, huh?
That does sound like chaos to me.
Yeah, it would be. Sheryl, what about you?
I never wanted a large company. I like knowing my people's names. I like knowing their family names. And I like to know that we are a group. Yes. Is it harder if you lose one than if you have a huge company? It is. But I'd rather take that chance as to fight, as Brandi said, the chaos of a huge business.
Right. So this is our business advice to you. If you've listened to at this point, you need to, right now, if you've not done this, you need to be like Brandi. You need to decide, what is this business that's going to meet your end goals? What is this business that's going to be there? Because our guest next week is going to be something special. And the reason I'm going to tell you about in a little bit about what next week's show will entail, but you got to set your own sights. And when I tell you about next week's episode, maybe you'll understand. So, Brandi, is there anything you would add to what I just said?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So just 3 ending points for me. What I like what you said about them closing their company. They're doing what they can control. There's so many things we can't control. I can't control the weather. I can't control how many phone calls come in on that phone, but I can control if I shut the company down for the day. So I love that they're doing that. The second thing is I love swag and giveaways. So what I would like to challenge our listeners to do is to this week come up with one thing they're going to delegate and one thing they're going to outsource. And if you will email me what you delegated and what you outsourced, I will send you a free copy of our CBC Success Journal.
There you go. How about that one? Brandi, will you even write a personal note and sign it for them?
I will, yes.
There you go. Okay, so send an email to Brandi. Sheryl, anything you would add in on this?
Again, just put your mask on first. And we're going into the holiday season, which takes chaotic. One more step. Go into it calmly. I mean, you have family out there that need you just as much as your employees, if not more.
So next week's episode, watch for it. We're not sure what time. We moved to 3 o'clock this week, but Brandi has done told us that 3 o'clock, she's tired at this point. So we may change to a different time. But that's beside the case, because here's the whole thing. There's going to come a day somewhere in your business life that you're going to decide to exit from your business. Brandi, is that going to be for you and Jeremy? I mean, neither one of your kids want to take Blues Brothers and run, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So,
we'll have to come to that point where we eventually sell it.
Correct. So this is the whole thing, which is exit plans, because this is what we see. A lot of people come in and they pour their heart and their soul into the business. And then the day comes along that they say, hey, I'm going to decide to put it onto the market and I'm going to sell the business. And a lot of people get really disappointed at this. They go to a business broker. You may go to someone like us and we have a conversation and we hear, and as I'm asking all these questions, there's one that will come up and I say, well, how much do you plan to sell this for? And they tell me that figure. And Brandi, I may fall out of my chair at this point, right? Because yes. I just don't see it. So what we're going to talk about next week, and we're going to have a business broker on that's going to talk about what do you do to sell your business? Because what you've got to do is it takes some time to put this together. If you decide you're going to hang that for sale sign tomorrow on your business, it maybe ain't going to be possible. And the thing is, it's not going to be staged properly. When you look at selling a business, everything's got to be staged. Just like if you sell your home, you put a piece of property on the market, you got to have a nice yard. You got to have a clean. They stage the house and do all those other things. So that's our subject matter next week. So be sure and join us next week here on another episode as we go into that. So Brandi, anything else you want to add to this episode before I shut it down this week?
I think I've said all I want to say today.
There you go. Sheryl, you got anything else you want to add?
I'm good here. Just everyone, if you hear this before the holidays, have a great holiday.
That's it. So from Omaha, Nebraska, the home of Warren Buffett, who didn't even call me to say I was coming to town and didn't even ask me if I wanted to have dinner. What can I say here? But this is the hometown, and a lot of people are from Omaha, Nebraska. When I was coming down here, I think, why is Omaha sticking in my head? And I remember when I was a kid, you remember watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom? That was on TV when I was a kid. And so I kept wondering, what's Omaha on my mind? I was thinking Omaha Steaks, but it was a Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom show. I forget the guy's name. I think it was Perkins or something used to host that show some years ago. So from us here at CBC Success Group, we appreciate you joining us. It's always great to have you with us. If we can help you put together your plan, your strategy, resolve your issues, help knock out your frustrations, give us a call. Let us know. We'd love to have a conversation with you. With that, we're out of here. We'll see you on our next episode next week. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you later.